Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day to you all, no matter where you are. Ken Course here with another episode of Expert Momentum, ready to get started and have a lot to share today. And as I mentioned, this is something that I have been working, in an industry for, pardon me, I can speak. I've been working in this industry for about 11 years now, and today's content is one of the most fundamental pieces of content about speaking, about becoming an expert business, about learning that skill of how you turn your mouth into money, of understanding the specifics of how an event should be structured. And so if you have an intention long-term to make money in an expert business, then a preview event is something you're going to do eventually. And it's something that you should really start doing as soon as you possibly can, because in the early days, you're going to need to start experimenting, trying things out, testing your content, seeing your style and what works with you. And it's always best to be doing these things live with an audience. So whenever you can take an opportunity to speak in front of people or to teach in front of people or to see how your content is connecting or resonating, that's the way to do it. So preview events can be done in many different ways. I'm going to go through some of those ways today, and then actually we're going to dig into a brand new tool that I created that's called the Organizing Your Perfect Preview Event, which is really going to help you start thinking about how you would organize your own event or how you would co-host an event or all of the different steps that go into that. But again, your preview event, however you do it, whether it's live, whether it's virtual, whether it's a webinar, no matter what it is one of the critical pieces to your success. It's how people find out about you. It's how people learn the specifics about what you teach and what you do. It's most people's first step or first experience with you is to experience some sort of first initial preview session with you. And that can be done lots of different ways. And we'll talk about some of those different ways throughout my time here in Amy Carrier's classroom. But I know that the preview event is pretty much the most important thing. And once you've got it right, it may be the only thing that many of you need is a preview event that goes into your product, that goes into your service, that goes into what you do. It might be the only thing that you actually need to get started and to launch your business. And most of the successful speaking companies I've worked with over the years are expert businesses. Once they've found that perfect mix of what their perfect preview event or their perfect webinar or their perfect introduction event looks like, then normally that doesn't change really ever. And so it's a critical thing to keep in mind for how you put your company together and how you structure things. And so I'm excited to get into this content today. This is something, as I mentioned on my little preview video that I recorded for this course, that this is the same type of training that many students I've worked with in the past have paid anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 US to get access to. So this is something that you around the world are getting access to completely free, and I'm excited to be able to share it with you and to go through the organizer and to really keep your momentum going so that you can turn your mouth into money. You can have a business that's based around your expertise and your experience and all the things that you do at this point. And again, if you have questions, anything you want me to clarify or cover in today's lesson, make sure that you let me know and I will be happy to review that. But let's dig in. Let's get started. And again, for those of you who haven't seen me here before in the classroom, I always like to throw in a little bit of introduction of who I am, what I do, why you should pay attention to anything that I have to say, and you'll actually notice that I talk about this when we're talking about our preview event today. But my name's Ken Course. I have been in this expert industry or the speaking industry for most of my career at this point, but 11 years really. My teams and I and companies I've worked with over the years have generated over $50 million in sales, both online and offline. And a big part of where those sales happen are at these preview events that I'm going to be discussing today. And that's in a variety of different industries. So small business training, the one I'm most known for, or digital marketing. But I've worked in nonprofit, personal development, executive coaching, information tech, real estate, finance, stationery and art supplies. And I'm working with many more interesting clients now, from nutritional products to network marketing to all sorts of different industries. And so I have a lot of experience when it comes to these events and when it comes to how you put them together and how you should really be thinking about them, as part of your process and time. So let's move on. one thing I always mention at the beginning of every session, I know that I talk fast, especially for those of you that are, learning English or practicing English. Again, if you're here live in the chat room, please, ask questions, ask me to slow down. I always talk fast. It's kind of my signature. I understand because I try to get through as much as I can in this hour to make sure it is as action-packed as it can possibly be. And welcome, Julia and Rashid, who are out there watching me. Thank you so much for those of you who are here. And again, feel free to ask questions, ask for clarification during the session. I'll be keeping an eye on how things go. But I know I talk fast. I know I don't slow down unless you let me know that you want me to slow down. So I make that really clear at the beginning of every call. So I also mentioned my specialty is working with high-level expert and speaking businesses. So really, these are people, and I talked about this a lot in our first week, who understand that it's all about sharing what they know. It's about introducing who they know and their networks. It's about getting connected with audiences who want to learn from you, who want to be instructed from you. So this classroom, for example, is a great example of an expert business or of a speaking business because it is a community that's filled with experts that are here to teach you in their various areas of expertise. All of us have different experiences. Even though Julia, who's out there watching, one of our instructors here in the classroom, has extensive experience in, marketing and promotion herself. With my story and my experience, it's different than what she knows and her story and her experience. So there's value to be had from everybody that's out here. I hope I pronounce this right. Mohsin says, no excuses. That's right. I know. I'm sorry. I talk fast. It's just the way it is. I'm like your advanced level English teacher here for those of you who struggle with English. But that's my specialty. That's what I've been doing for years and years. So let's define what a preview event is, because maybe you've never heard this term before, or you're not familiar with what it means or how it works. But really, there are different types of preview events, but all in all, a preview event is really the same thing. It's an introduction to who you are. It's an introduction to your topic and your schedule about what you're doing. It's an introduction to why people should know you. So really, for most people, your preview event, however you do it, is going to be their first taste of you and what you do, which is why it's so critical. And normally, at a preview event, that's the first time, unless you have your digital marketing really in order, it's the first time that anyone's going to decide whether or not they're going to work with you, they're going to buy your products or services, they're going to coach with you, they're going to stick around in your community. All of those things are going to happen as a result of what happens at this preview event. So really, it is the critical point for most people to understand the specifics about who you are, what you do, how you tell stories, all of that good stuff. And so there are different types of preview events. I'm kind of going in order on this slide of the most common as well as the most effective. So live preview events, always the best. Whenever you can do them live, I don't care if you're even starting by doing them in your living room or in your kitchen. I actually know plenty of 7- and 8-figure speaking companies that started in someone's living room or that started in someone's kitchen. So you can do this wherever you can talk, wherever you can get space. I'll actually talk about that a little bit more as we start getting into the organizer. Oh, welcome back, Julia. Sorry, your internet went out, but really, the most common types of preview events are one that you host yourself or one that you co-host with others. There's always a benefit to co-hosting a preview event with others. The first is that having 2 people to promote the event other than one is better. And in fact, a lot of times for preview events, it's good to have many people. I've seen preview events that have as many as 4 or 5 different speakers or experts, just like this classroom. So a great example of a preview event would be if all of us here in the classroom got together and we did an event where each of us did 30 to 90 minutes on our area of expertise, just like we do here in the classroom. So in some ways, this classroom is like a preview event, but the best types of preview events are ones that you host yourself or that you co-host with others live. And part of the reason behind that is sales psychology, which we'll talk about a little bit later tonight. A speaking event where you're not paid, but you're allowed to promote or sell at the end. So most people who are looking to be speakers for a living, people who want to be paid to speak, or whether that's business, motivation, education, doesn't matter what it is. For the most part, your very first gigs or your very first presentations are generally going to be speaking events where you're not paid and where you're either promoting something or you're giving an offer at the end or you have an opportunity to sell, and that's how you're getting compensated. So for the most part, part, that's how the industry works, and that's how you kind of do your first practices. Now, what works even better is if you just host the event yourself. That's why I put it afterwards. But if you need to get in front of new audiences of people, or if you want to build some credibility by partnering with, a school or an organization or a hospital or another speaking event or whatever it is, there may be speaking opportunities that come up where they say, look, we don't have a budget to hire a speaker, but you can come in and at the end you can give an offer, whether it's a paid offer or a free offer. That's a very common type of preview event, and one that this questionnaire and what we do today will apply to that. Unpaid virtual events or summits with offers. So this is something that every single instructor in Amy Carrier's classroom does. In some ways, again, Amy Carrier's classrooms, the format is similar to that, where all of us are here and we're previewing ourselves all the time. You're getting examples of our content and our presentations and how they work. And so we're joining forces in a classroom like this, where all of us can do a lot more than just one of us can do alone. And it makes a huge difference. As I said, partnership, and I'll do whole modules on partnership as we go through this course. But for a lot of you, partnering up with other people that are local with you, or other people that have expertise that you don't, or people that are similar to you but not quite doing the same thing, you want to partner up as early and as often as you can. Again, it helps you promote, helps you get experience. And so a lot of times taking part in virtual events or virtual classrooms like this can be huge, and a huge way for you to start getting known and getting exposure. And then finally, there are webinars, or you could just call those online trainings. I love the word virtual event. I think webinar in some ways has gone out of style, but the classic webinar, where you do like we're doing here and there's some training involved with it, and that's how you're doing it, is still a great option as a preview event. And for the most part, most people I know who make sales of products or programs, or even, live event style programs, are doing it with some sort of preview event. They're doing it with a live preview event, they're doing it with a virtual event, or they're doing it on a webinar. That's generally how these things work. So all the questions from tonight's, session can be something that you apply to that. But a preview event is something you need, and it's something you need to prepare for. If you're going to do this, consistently and full time, you definitely, over time will develop 2 or 3 different preview events that will make sense for what you do. And generally, those aren't going to change very much. Now, when you get really experienced, you may have some more than that, but really your goal is to get through your first one. And for anyone out there who's watching and saying, I love this idea of being known for who I am and for what I do and for my expertise, a preview event is really the first thing you need to put together. It's the first thing you have to understand how you're going to do it. And so, golden tip, I point this out, start doing events as soon as you can. I know that it's counterintuitive to a lot of people. A lot of people will say, get really good at something, or do a lot of practice, or stand in front of your mirror, and that's how you're going to learn. And I can tell you that's not true. In fact, the best way to get practice is to dive right in, to start putting your presentation together. The resource that I'm going to talk through tonight and the questions I'm going to ask and that you'll have the opportunity to get as part of this is going to help you put that presentation together. So keep in mind, you want to start doing this as quickly as you can. You don't want to waste a ton of time. You want to make sure that you are really starting to put yourself out there and speak and get practice. There is nothing in the world that is the same as when you get up to deliver a presentation or a program or a preview event in front of a room full of people. There's just nothing like it. And the only way to practice it is to do it, and to get up and to do it again and again and again. I know that becoming an expert or being a speaker is a really scary thing for some people, or even culturally you might hear like, oh, well, you're just showing off what you know, or those types of things. But think about it this way. For the most part, once you get really good at this, you become a model, you become a teacher to people, you become an inspiration to people. It's something that, everywhere in the world, people turn to education. They turn to teachers. And so it doesn't necessarily just have to be about building yourself up. It's more so when you take a stage or when you start an event, it's about how you can build up the people watching you, how you can build up the students, how you can build up the participants of your workshops or of your trainings or of the things you do. But it doesn't start until you start. And a lot of people will put this off way too long. You'll go and try to develop a program, or you'll develop a product, or you won't practice this type of thing enough. I know I've worked with clients from time to time who I've started working with them, and they've taken as long as 6 months to a year to get out and start speaking, or to provide their first webinar, or to do those things. Don't do that. Obviously go through a process like what we're going to talk about tonight, but the more often you can put yourself out there, practice, speak, get known for what you do, the better off you're going to be. And it's something you want to do as consistently as you can. And so how do you do it? And I know that some of this might seem very common sense, but for a lot of you, if you haven't thought about these as opportunities to do your preview event or to start practicing your preview event, you should start doing these things right away. So Facebook Live is the easiest one. You're watching us do Facebook Live. You've seen with the way I organize my class, there are ways you can be very technical about how you do it, like where I have slides and my video and those types of things. You can be techie about it. And I know that Leland, I believe, teaches that. Julia's in the classroom. I believe Leland is our video instructor here in Amy Carrier's classroom. So if you want to learn how to do fancy stuff like what we're doing here, you can ask him or watch his class, or you can ask me how I do it. Or you can just start on your cell phone. In fact, I would have gone live a few minutes earlier tonight if it weren't for a bad cell phone signal here at my house and where I live. But Facebook Live is a great place to practice your preview event, or practice your webinar, or practice, talking and getting familiar and comfortable with it. Now, Facebook Live is very different than live events. It's not the same as connecting directly with people. So there's less risk in the sense that you're not connected to people who can talk back to you or respond to you or interact in a certain way. So that is helpful for some people. But, at the same time, you want to make sure that you're mixing it up. So there are different skills to do a Facebook Live than it is to do a preview event in person. Webinars, I brought that up. So again, those are just virtual events or online trainings. There are many free resources you can use to do those. YouTube, you can also stream live on YouTube, record your presentation, put it up there on YouTube. In your living room. I tell people that some of the most successful expert businesses I know of, and the successful speakers that I know of, their business started in their living room. They would do events for 3 to 5 people. One of those people might be their wife or their husband or their grandmother, and that's okay. But getting that practice of having, delivering your content, seeing how people are reacting to it, understanding whether or not people are understanding you, or if they have questions, if you're doing too much or if you're doing too little. You want to have people in a room as often as you can for doing these preview events to see what works. In any public place near you, you would be surprised at the amount of at how easy it can be to get space if you start asking around for it. Now, in the United States, I'll give some examples, and I know internationally this is true as well. Since I've done events in London, I've done events in Australia, I've done events in many different countries throughout the world, even Mexico, Costa Rica as well. A lot of these same spaces are available. So local businesses, oftentimes, if you go in and you talk to them and they have a conference room, and, oftentimes you can even get these conference rooms for free after hours if you go in and you talk to the owner of a business. Any local conference centers, a lot of times you can go talk to them. Obviously, you can pay for a room in a hotel or somewhere that has a meeting room, and you can do it that way. There are many local businesses will also have spaces or meeting rooms or conference rooms as well. So you might look at places like banks or financial offices or real estate offices. A lot of times they have them. So, if you're looking for space and you're determined to do it, space for a preview event is something that, when you start asking around, can become something very easy to find. And a lot of times you can get that space completely free, if you do something after hours. Or, and as is the case over here, one of the big things that's big in the United States right now is called co-working, which is where multiple businesses will share a space and they come and go as they please. And so in a co-working space, a lot of times, if you're willing to promote the co-working space, then a lot of times those places will give you event space for free. So if you're looking for space, there are many public places near you where you can get that done. And then I mentioned any conference room. So I kind of combined those. But you'd be surprised once you start asking questions where you can find space to present, where you can find space to speak, where you can find, just a place where they'll let you come in and deliver your content and practice and invite people, especially if you promote the place. So, if you do it at a bank, you want to promote the bank and let them know, obviously in exchange for you doing a presentation and having people come to their bank, they can do an introduction or something where they talk about their bank. So a lot of times it's easier to get space than you realize. How do you promote it? And I'm going to give whole lessons on this in the future. I know that a lot of people, their biggest question when I say host your own event is, well, how do I start getting lots of people in the room? Or how do I get 50 people there or 100 people there? That's something I'm going to spend entire modules on here in the course. It's something that I train extensively in my own community and my own business. But I just want to give some ideas for tonight and really focus on the content itself tonight and how you're preparing for the event. So we're really talking about the logistics behind that event. We're really talking about how you start preparing to think about what you're going to say and what you're going to talk about. But social media is an obvious one. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, depending on what your event is about or what you're talking about, there are many, many, many different ways on social media to promote and invite people to your event. In fact, you can use a Facebook event like what you saw Julia and I do here in the classroom to invite people to an in-person event. That works great. And since I know that all of you are on Facebook, since you're watching the classroom here, you can use a Facebook event to drive people to come to your live or your virtual event. In the US, and some of these are international as well, but I want to reference them, there are two sites that are designed for local events. There's meetup.com and there's eventbrite.com. I know that meetup.com has a presence internationally as well and hosts international events. Obviously, you'll want to check up on that depending on where you are in the world to see if that works for you. But there may be other local event sites around you as well. So anywhere that you find yourself hearing about local events, local things that are going on, you want to be aware of those local event sites. But here in the States, those two biggest ones are meetup.com and eventbrite.com. They do have a fee associated with them to promote your event, but a lot of times they're great discovery mechanisms for people to find out about what you do and what your event is all about. Local TV, radio, news sites, and papers or newspapers, really anywhere in your local community that you can get in front of people and talk. Once you're doing a preview event or once you're hosting an event, again, even if that event is at your house when you're starting, it's an opportunity for you to go out and get some press and let people know on the news or let people know on the radio or let people know wherever you can get interviewed about your event or about what you're going to be discussing. It is a great opportunity for you to go out into the world and let people know, hey, I train an event. It is on, the business of speaking, or it's on digital marketing, or it's on cryptocurrency, or it's on entrepreneurship for kids. Doesn't matter what it is, but you want to keep in mind that that is something that's newsworthy. And a lot of times your local news stations or your local news channels might interview you if you let them know that you're hosting an event. Direct message your community. So if you have Facebook friends or followers, Twitter friends or followers, if you have an email list full of people, which I know is the second part, wherever it is that you have your people, and that might even just be texting people on your cell phone to say, hey, I want to let you know I'm hosting a preview event or I'm hosting this event, and I would love for you to come to it, and I would love for you to invite others to it. But again, these are some simple ways a lot of times that you can get the first people to your first preview event to get that rolling. And one other thing that's really important, I mentioned this last week, but this is why I'm so big on public speaking and on the expert business, because speaking gives you instant authority. Even if you're not the best at what you do, even if no one knows that you do what you do, even if you're talking about a topic that no one understands at all, the second you're willing to stand up and talk about it or give a presentation or do a preview event like this, you are now an authority. You're an authority in a way that most other people won't claim. Most people in the world, are not super comfortable jumping up and training on what they know or training on what they do. So the fact that you're willing to do it, or the fact that you're willing to do a preview event or a presentation, immediately gives you authority. And you'll find that, doesn't matter whether you're right, whether you're wrong, whether you're the best at it, whether you've never spoken in your life. It just gives you automatic authority. And authority can really help you build a sustainable business. It can help you find clients, can help you make sales. But just the fact that you're willing to stand up and go, I know something about this topic, or I know something about whatever it is you discuss, it's automatic authority. And you can't buy anything that's better than being willing to put it out in a preview event or put it out in a classroom. It doesn't get better than that. And then one other thing, speaking often. So you heard me say you got to start. And then I've also kind of said this already, but it's another golden tip that's really, really important for you to keep in mind, that speaking often helps you find out what works best for you. So if you're not out consistently speaking, if you're not out, practicing and improving and developing your presentations and what it is you talk about regularly, you're never going to get better at it. And over time, part of the reason people tell me all the time, they love my sessions here in the classroom. They love when I'm teaching or I'm doing webinars. They love when I'm doing presentations. And the reason is because I've been doing presentations for years and years and practicing. I've had many, many bad presentations in my life that, didn't happen. I like what Julia says. It would be nice if you aren't wrong, though. Yes, I understand. Obviously, my hope would be that you're doing your best to be honest and ethical and you're not getting up and teaching people the wrong things. But it's okay to make mistakes, is really what I mean by that. So obviously, you don't necessarily want to be wrong about what you teach, but I've said things on stage that were wrong. I've been wrong with something that I've shared on stage before. All you can do is admit, you made a mistake and move on to the next thing. And you don't know until it's something that you do regularly. So if you're not speaking often, if you're not trying to find what works best for you and your style, because not everyone has to be like me. Not everyone has to be like Julia. In fact, you see we have very different speaking styles in the way that we do things. That's great that we have that. The way we connect with audiences are completely different. But if I hadn't done, I can remember the first time I started giving preview events or I started speaking. In fact, the first presentations I ever gave were on technology tools. I was actually giving, even before that, I was giving presentations on English as a second language to technology students who wanted to learn both English and computers at the same time. And this was back in the early 2000s. So it was a challenging topic, and I was not very good at it. When I first started, I was nervous. I didn't like people looking at me as an authority. I brought that up, so I used to have people, to this day, I still joke about it. I have people call me Mr. Ken. Like, nobody calls me by my last name. No one would call me Mr. Course in a classroom. Mr. Course is like my grandfather. So I'm Mr. Ken, which is always a joke, but I wasn't great when I started, and one of the things was I would often try to do too much, or I would try to share too much, or I would try to give too much information. And sometimes I still do that when I'm speaking, but I just understand that about me, and I admit it at the beginning of my presentation. That's what works for me. That's my style, and people love that about me. But again, I wouldn't be here if I hadn't done thousands of presentations. I have spoken. Whenever anyone will listen to me, I will speak. Obviously, that's why I'm here in Amy Carrier's classroom, but whenever anyone will listen to me and I get an opportunity to practice and test something and get better, I'm going to take that opportunity. I would advise you to do that as well. So speak often. Do as much as you can. And if no one is asking you to come speak, start your own Facebook Live and speak on your Facebook Live. And if no one's watching that, just keep practicing and inviting people until people start coming to your Facebook Live. If you don't speak often, you won't get better, and you want to improve. That's a critical piece of making money doing this. And then I mentioned this on my last presentation here. I like to throw it in a lot. Here's a big secret. Nobody, including myself, is ever going to come along one day and be like, all right, now you are a speaker. Now you are the expert. Now you have that business. People don't go out and distribute those titles. There are great training programs like this one. There are great ways to learn skills and practice. But the truth is, no one ever comes along one day and goes, great, you're now the best speaker in the world on marketing. Like, you might win an award or something someday, but for the most part, that doesn't happen. So the only way you know that you're getting better and that you're improving and that you're good at what you do is to keep doing it. So once you get started and you go through tonight's process, then this is something you're going to do repeatedly and you want to keep doing. So let's talk about organizing your perfect preview event. And for a second here, I'm going to prepare my screen because I'm moving over to a different document. And so one of the things I do want to mention is if you're watching this and you say, wow, I really love what you're going through. I really want those questions. I want to answer them for myself. You can get in contact with me. I'm going to tell you how at the end of this, but you can send me a message or you can respond to this video. However it is you want to get in touch with me, I'm even going to give you an email address. If you want this organizer that I'm showing you tonight, and I know the good news is that Julia, who's out there, has this. She saw it before I started tonight's lesson. If you would like this organizer, get in touch with me directly, and I will be happy to send it to you because we're going to be going through a number of questions, and this is something, again, that I use in my training. It's something that is going to be offered for people to become part of my community and what I do. So if you're interested in that, get in contact with me if you want this download, and I'd be happy to send it to you when you request it. So I think my screen is prepared. Let's jump over there and see how we're looking. Yes, looking pretty good. I just want to make sure that I'm not covering things up. I'm going to move me down a little bit. Actually, let's put me right here. All right, so this is the download. It's called Organizing Your Perfect Preview Event, and I'm using this tonight to walk you through the most common questions or ways to organize what it is that you do in your business. So again, here's some fun pictures. This thing is filled with fun pictures of me on stage, but obviously I've given you the introduction already. But one of the important things about this checklist that I have right here, or this area, is this is the order of how you're going to prepare for the event, how the event is going to be structured. And so this checklist is really critical because obviously you want at the introduction of the event, you want to make sure that everything you can have arranged or you can have in order is in order. So obviously your event logistics. So if you don't know if you're not familiar with the word logistics, it means all the things you need to have a successful event, from your technology to your name tags to whatever it is that you need for that event. And we'll dig into that a little bit. You want to have that in order right at the beginning. You're going to give a promise to the event. I'm going to talk more about that. You want to introduce your offer, or if you have a next step for people to take, you want to start introducing or letting people know that there are more ways to work with you, right off the bat. You want to let them know that. You want to let them know why you're passionate about them and their results. So you want to know why, you want this to be valuable to the people in the room. You want to teach some core content, and I'll tell you how much you should be teaching on any one of these sessions tonight. So I'm going to give you some breakdowns. You want to state the points for each thing, or give examples for each thing, or share stories to reinforce the point. So I'm going to give you a structure you can use for exactly how to teach a point and how that works in a preview presentation. Then you're going to, once you've finished your core content, you're going to recap it. You're going to share why they need to take action or why they need to do what they're doing. So you need to give them practical and emotional reasons. You want to share what happens if they take no action, which there'll be some questions associated with that. How your next step solves their larger problem or solves what's working on. I'm going to teach a close stack, which means how do you talk about an offer or a next step, which I use a technique called the stack. It is probably the most common thing you'll see when used at a preview event or when used in that format. You want to share the outcome of the components of your stack, provide those values, and then obviously, so I'm breaking down like how you're going to either get people to enroll in the next action or buy something from you or take the next action. And then you obviously want to focus a lot, and this we'll break down these steps as we go into the questions a little bit more. But this is really how the structure is going to look of your presentation. So even if you just got this and or you're watching this and you just walked through these things in order. So you had an introduction, you immediately give your promise, you mention there are going to be next steps ahead. You start sharing, why you're passionate about them and their results. You then start sharing your story and why they should listen to you. You teach some core content, some core lessons for your presentation. Then you start talking about why they need to take action, and you go through these phases. This will be a great presentation. This is what you have to do. So this is the whole system you've got here. So obviously step one, it starts with planning your event. So the first thing you got to do is get the plan in place. So obviously you have to say, I'm going to host an event. I want to have this event. how am I going to have this event? Where am I going to have this event? You want to have those things in order. So you want to start planning your events. So in each one of these, again, there'll be a question, and I'm going to revisit those questions. And then if you want this, you have the ability at this point to request it from me again. And these boxes are where you would fill out your answers. So first of all, what's the name of your event? So you want to come up with a title or a name for your event that gets people excited. A lot of times people focus too much on the education or the training content of their event. And that's okay sometimes, but most of the time you want to focus on what gets people excited about what you do. It's why I started my first class here in the classroom by saying, what does it take to be a 7 or an 8-figure business? It's definitely a much more exciting title than how to create a perfect preview event. Now, perfect preview event's a nice thing. I'm telling you more about what you're going to learn. But obviously for a preview event, the more you can connect to why the person would be interested, excited, afraid, you want to focus on the emotions. And I also put on here, keep in mind your name should directly direct a problem that your perfect attendee will have, or is experiencing in their business. So again, focus on the emotion in the title of your event. So 7 things that should scare you about Facebook right now. One of the titles for one of my preview events right now is called Surviving the Facebook Apocalypse. Because right now, many people are scared about Facebook's privacy issues and policies. So people feel like it's the end of the world on Facebook. And so I'm using that in my preview presentation to say, hey, you've got to survive this. You got to understand what's happening. And so it's going at the emotional side. Why does this matter emotionally to the people that are going to attend the event? And then from there, or you can do it in the opposite order, you can say, who is the perfect attendee for this event? So who do you want to be sitting in front of you? Who do you want to be tuning in and watching your Facebook Live? Who is the human? Who is the person? Is it a man or a woman or both? How old are they? Do they have kids or not? Are they professionals or not? Or do they own their own business? What are they interested in? What do they do in their free time? What do they read? What do they watch? What do they care about? What are their values? All of those things are very important when you start thinking about who is the perfect attendee. If you've spoken before, so you've done your own classroom presentation or you've done your own event, you can work this off of an actual person that's been working with you in the past. So whenever I think about my perfect attendee, I always think about people who I've actually worked with. And so I know their name and I know what they're all about, but I want to know who that perfect attendee is. So once I've started thinking about who my perfect attendee is, I've got to ask myself, what does my perfect attendee want the most from this event? So what do they want? And a lot of times, again, this is a place where a lot of us who are more educational or we're trainers, we think that what people want is the education or the training. We're like, oh, people are excited to come and learn. When in reality, most people want the solution to a problem. They want to feel better about something. They want an emotional experience from coming to the event. So they want relief to pain. In fact, the best example I've ever heard, it's more of a marketing example, is, a lot of people would benefit from being healthier, from losing weight, from eating better. They would benefit from being healthier. And because they are unhealthy, they may have health problems. They might have headaches, they might have back pain, they might have, other conditions that happen. But you can't approach that person with a solution that's going to help them with every area of your health until you address the pain. That person wants to be out of pain before they want you to teach them something. So for your preview event, you want to focus on the emotional side. What do they want the most? Do they want more money? Do they want a better career? Do they want a better relationship? Do they want to be out of pain? So what your perfect attendee wants is normally something emotional and something that's meaningful to them in their life. Then this is really important to know. before the event is, what is the attendee's next step after attending this event? So what are you going to offer them at the event? This doesn't necessarily have to be something that they buy, but oftentimes, especially at a preview event, this may be something that they pay for. So it may be a coaching package. It may be some training, some ongoing training. It might be a community or a group that they pay for monthly access to. Whatever it is, you want to have that next step in mind before you even, start planning the event. It's like this is happening right when you start thinking of the event. You always want to understand what is the next step they're going to take? How are they going to work with you once they've gone through your preview presentation and they understand what it is that you do? This next piece in the download, again, which if you want it, as I mentioned, send me a message. I will send this out to you, is really talking about some specific logistics. So the better your planning is coming into the event, the less headaches you will have. And I'm talking about little things like, obviously, you want to have a goal for your registration and attendees for the event. So you want to set a target of how many people do you want to have sitting in front of you. But then you want to start planning the little details. And the more that you plan out this list, the more successful your event will be. The more you will have time and energy and focus on creating a great experience for your participants. So you want to be creating a great experience for your people. That should be your number one focus. And if you're too worried about any of these things during the event or, 10 minutes before you go on stage at the event, it's going to make you crazy. So notice I'll go in order. Obviously, anyone to support you at the event, and this could be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be a coworker, it could be someone you hire. But if you need help on site with the event, which I guarantee you will, you want to plan it in advance. So you want to make sure you have someone there to help you. You have someone to sign people in. You have people to welcome people. You have people to help. If you're going to have people, you want to organize those things before your event. Obviously, you want to have your order forms or your sales materials or whatever it is that you need for people to take the next step. I have had this happen in my career before where I arrived at an event where I was going to sell a coaching package or I was going to sell a training package and I hadn't prepared my order forms for them to fill out. So you absolutely must have those things in place. And if it's not an order form, that's okay too. It could be a sign-up form. That's totally fine if that's what you use. Doesn't matter what it is, but you want to have those things ready and in place. Or at the very least, you want to have some way that you tell people to take the next step. So order forms, sales materials. You want to have those things ready to go. Physical products or materials that you bring. So if you have something that you print out, or if you've been doing this a long time, you might have books or you may have physical products. You might have USB drives. You might have banners or flyers. The more consistently you do this, you may have lots of materials that you bring with you. So just ask yourself, do you want to have some materials? I actually wish I had brought up, on my next presentation, I'm going to bring up something that I printed out. So when I started speaking, I was doing things as cheap as I could. I didn't have a book. I didn't have banners. So I literally went to a print store and I printed out little signs that I brought with me that had like a picture of what I was doing. And that was my material. Doesn't have to be super expensive stuff. You don't have to prepare, but if you want material to support your sale, you want to have those things. As Alex says, I love roll-ups. He always stands beside them discreetly. Yes, roll-ups are great. Many different ways to do that. Food and beverage needs. So if you want to provide food or beverage, you want to plan that in advance, especially if you're going to do this in a hotel room or a hotel conference room. Not preparing for that generally can be the most expensive mistake that you make when you're planning your preview event. Because if you have to order stuff on site, or if you're figuring it out, or if you're doing your event at dinner time, and you need to have some dinner there, you need to make sure you've planned that in advance, because again, those things can be really, really expensive mistakes. Technology or audio-visual needs. So do you need a microphone? Do you need projectors so that you can show some PowerPoints or a television? Do you need a screen, to be able to show that? Do you need audio that plays on your phone or on your computer? I know like a lot of speakers, including myself, we'll have a video that plays before we go on stage that introduces us and shows all the cool stuff that we've done. If you're going to do that, you need to be prepared for it in advance. So you want to make sure that you've got all those things in line. And again, this is another way that a lot of venues that host events make a lot of money. When you don't show up with your projector or your microphone, that can be very, very expensive to get done on site or at the event. Your event agenda. So you want to have that prepared in advance, especially if you have multiple speakers. And even if it's just a few bullet points at this point, even if it's just a few bullet points that say, I'm going to start here, or you print this organizer. However you do it, it doesn't matter. This organizer could serve as your event agenda. Like, what are you going to talk about and what is the flow going to be? An event MC or a host. So you might find, and this is a critical thing to remember, that a lot of times if you're going to do an event, you might want someone to introduce you. So you might want to have a friend that gets up and says, Ken Kors is a great guy, a great speaker, and you should watch his classroom, and here you go. Like Amy Carrier is sharing this right now. You might need someone that introduces you. That's called an event MC or your event host. So if you need to have that person, you want to organize that in advance and make sure that that person's ready and make sure that that person is prepared. So what do you want them to wear? How do you want them to talk? Are they big and excited or are they reserved? How are they? So you want to prepare for that in advance. The setup of your event room. This is a big one. So for a preview event, if you expect people to get up and move around, like you want people to get up and move around the room, if your room is full of tables or your room has desks in it or there's a big conference room table and your room setup is wrong, that causes a big problem. So you want to think about that in advance. Do you want people to sit and watch you and take notes? Do you want people to get up and talk to each other and interact? Do you want to be able to walk into the center of the room and talk to people and do those kinds of things? Whatever it is, you need to make sure that you've thought about it in advance. This is the number one thing that has been a challenge for me over the years in doing preview events. When I've done preview events, I have walked into an event room, an hour before I was supposed to go stand on stage and teach, and the room setup was totally wrong. There were tables everywhere, like there were no chairs, like there would be podiums if I didn't want a podium, there'd be all sorts of things. So you want to think about the setup of your event room and try to prepare as much as you can. So do you want chairs? Do you want tables? Do you want desks? Do you want standing room? Is this a networking function? You want to think about those things in advance. And that's something that we'll talk about a lot more because there's benefits, pros and cons to each thing and how you do that room. But you want to think about what works for you. The setup of your stage. So first of all, do you have a stage? Like, are you going to be standing on a stage, talking down to people? And if you do have a stage, or if you're just standing at the front of a room, what setup do you need? So I mentioned the materials and stuff. That's really important. Any flyers, products, or material that you want to bring into the event. So these could be related to the next step. They could be other things. I bring materials for many different programs when I go into the event. And I also bring free bonuses. So like what you're seeing right here, and you can request from me after this. This is something that I might bring to an event so people can see, a nice little book or a nice little presentation that I've got right there. This is something great to give away at the end of a presentation as well. So this might be a free gift that I give, but I have to be prepared for it in advance. If I don't, it's just way more expensive. To get print very fast, like if I wanted this printed and I was printing it the same day as my event, it would be much, much more expensive than if I had ordered it in advance. So I've got to keep that in mind. It's really important. My PowerPoint. So if I'm going to use a PowerPoint or my presentation materials or my speaking notes, whatever it is, or if I need a whiteboard, if I need something to draw on or write on, I want to have those things prepared in advance. So you don't necessarily have to have a PowerPoint presentation. That's the most common thing that you'll use in a preview event, but you may not necessarily need that at this point. And then the other thing you want to have prepared, and I know this is one that a lot of people forget about, is your event reminder process. So once someone has told you they're coming to the event, whether that's a sign-up form or they sign up on Meetup or they tell you on social media or they confirm for the event, whatever it is, you want to have a process to make sure that those people actually come to the event, that they attend the event. If they don't, obviously you're wasting a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of money a lot of the time because people will sign up and then forget or people won't show up. So you want to make sure that you've thought out that process of how will you remind people. And it's always best to do it personally if you can. If you can personally remind somebody with a phone call or with a text message or with a direct message, that is the best kind. But all of these things, so all of this right here, are things that you can think about and prepare. If you prepare all of these things in advance, you're golden. You're going to walk into the event and you're just going to be ready to speak, which is what we're going to talk about as we go into these next sections. But this first part of this download alone is worth it. And I'm going to go at 4 more places, actually. But doing those things just clears your head. You walk in, you know what you're going to teach and how you're going to teach it, and you're ready to go. So for a lot of you, that's the first thing that you need. So let's keep going. So obviously, step 2 is your event kickoff. So I break the event down into different phases of the event. So obviously, there's pre-event, which pre-event is generally outside of the sales portion that we're going to talk about here. That's the most critical part of your event. How prepared you are for your preview event is going to determine how successful you are. But then there's the event kickoff. So what do you got to do to start the event? So, from the minute people walk in and they sit in their chair or they log onto your webinar, you want to be able to answer these questions. So I already asked you, is there an event facilitator or an MC? If so, who are they and how will they introduce you? So write that out. So what do you want them to say about you? You don't want to make that up. You don't want to wing it. Like a lot of people will wing it and they'll go, oh, well, Amy knows me. She knows what to say. She knows how to talk about me. She doesn't know what to say. She doesn't know how to talk about you. And I've had many, many speakers who are thrown off by bad MCs or bad event facilitators. So if you're going to have somebody introduce you, you need to tell them what to do or tell them what to say or how to talk about you. Or if you're going to show a video, they need to know that. Or if you're going to, have them hand out some flyers or some worksheets, they need to know that. You want to prepare for your event facilitator or your MC, and you want to tell them how to introduce you. And you want to have a script. Like, I will provide a biography to anybody that's ever going to introduce me. Then I want you to think about this. What is the promise that you're making to each one of your attendees to kick off the event? So they come in, they sit in their chair, the event, and you can cover this, or this can be your event MC or facilitator that covers this. It doesn't matter. But you want to answer this statement. By the time they leave, they will ... They will what? They will have a new skill. They will understand something. They will be out of pain. They will have hope for the future. They will know something they didn't know. They'll know how to host a preview event like you will know at this. So you want to make a promise right off the bat. So say, by sitting through my presentation, by the end, you will know this. And you want to tell them that within the first 20 seconds of something coming out of your mouth. You want to say, this is the promise. This is why you're here. I always like to joke as a speaker, and a lot of speakers like to do this, like, I just want to make sure you're in the right room. If you're here to learn how to start an expert business or how to make money with your words, then speak up. And I just want to make sure that you're in the right room. And they'll say yes or they'll say no. So what's the promise? Then right away, and this is something a lot of people are too scared to do, you want to make it clear and obvious that there is a next step to take, another way that they're going to work with you. So you want to introduce the offer or introduce the fact that there will be a next step within the first minute of the event. So you can do this or your MC can do this. I like to do this in assumptive language. So I like to make it very clear that this is your first experience with me, but as you continue working with me, you'll get help on how to answer these questions, or you'll understand how to put your presentation together, or what format works for you. You'll understand that, there's support and there's help for you through this process. You'll understand there are resources. So I'm not necessarily saying, hey, you're going to buy something, but I'm letting them know from the first, within that first minute of me taking stage on a webinar, in my preview event, whatever, hey, you're going to be working with me. There's going to be a lot more to do. And so this is just the first step. And this is true, as you guys see, as we walk through this questionnaire, you're going to go, man, there's so many nuances to these things. And this is why we're doing a whole classroom here where we talk about how to be a great expert, because there's a lot that goes into each one of these things. But you want to have something that lets them know right away there's a next step. Then why are they listening to you? So why are you the person to talk about this topic? What makes you the expert? I also mentioned, and I throw in a little note right there that's really important. focus on your results. So, and if you don't have results, like this may be your first presentation, that's okay. Talk about your intended results. Go back to the promise. So talk about why why do they listen to you? What is the point? So it might be going through that promise again and how you intend to deliver on that promise. But if you have some results, you want to share some results, you're listening to me. So like what that you see on that first slide that I show where I say, hi, I'm Ken Kors. I've made $50 million in the speaking business. That's my results. And I can talk about those results, but that gets your attention. You go, oh, I want to listen to this guy. He knows what he's talking about. I want to listen to this girl. She knows what she's talking about. So focus on your results and focus on why they're listening to you. I think that's really important. Otherwise, people are going to go, who's this clown? And they don't want to know, they don't listen. So why do they know that? Then you go into your story. And I gave you a lot of space to fill this out on this worksheet. Why are you personally passionate about this outcome for your attendees? This is your story and your examples. This is a big mistake a lot of new speakers make. They forget that when they're telling their story, the only reason they're telling their story is because it should be important to the person watching. It should be important to the attendee. So if you're going to tell a story about yourself, that story needs to link back to why they're listening to you. Like so many speakers I know get lost in their story and they tell stories that go on and on and on forever, and I don't know them and they didn't promise me anything and they're just talking about themselves and they're just like, oh, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh my God, why do I listen to this? Like there's a reason you're listening to this. You're listening to this because you want to be successful in your business. If I start telling you a bunch of stories about why I'm a great speaker and why, I became a speaker because I wanted to help people and yada, 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 and it doesn't come back to you, it's a big, big problem. So you have to make sure that any stories you tell, how is it going to come back around to why they're listening to you, why they're paying attention to you? So tell stories. Those stories are great, but check in. So if you're telling a story and you notice the audience is not paying attention, or I notice that my number of viewers is going down, I'm going to check in. I'm going to go, hey, so does that good for you? And I see Amy checked in with me as she's watching. She's like, this is so helpful, but most people probably don't think of it. Nope, they probably don't. So those stories are really important, and this prevents you from having a bad speaking experience. So then, after you do the introduction, which the introduction is really important, you're going to get into what we call the core content. So this is critical stuff right here. It's critical stuff. The key takeaways. So if you've got 30 minutes, the most you can teach is 3 points. That's the most you can teach. If you try to teach more than 3 things, you're teaching too much. For a 60-minute event, you should teach no more than 5 points. And you can make it even less than that, but I'm going to give you a format for that in a second. For a 90-minute event, you should focus on no more than 8 key points. But, and I mentioned this in here, it's better to stick to your 5 key points and deepen the learning through interaction, stories, examples. I would rather have the room do an activity or an exercise or work with each other rather than just talk at them for 90 minutes. It's not as effective. It's better to have them interacting whenever you can have them interact. So 30 minutes, 3 points, 60 minutes, 5 points, 90 minutes, 8 points. That's the most you can get. So then these just dig into your points. Like, what are you going to teach? So you want to do it in this order. This content right here is the content that makes my business. So my business and why I've been doing what I'm doing are these bullets right here. I can promise you, if you learn nothing else from me ever and coming to this class, this is what I want you to learn. So this is how you should teach a point when you're going to deliver that point. So first of all, you want to state the point. So just say it directly. This is what I want you to learn. Step 1, ... Say what the point is. So this is the point, step 1. The point of this is you can only teach 3 points in 30 minutes. Then you're going to give an example about that point. So you're going to give a teaching example about that point. So as I said, why that point is important, or why you can only teach 3 in 30 minutes, is because you're going to have to do this format that I'm teaching you right here. So for every point, you've got to do multiple things. You don't just say, here's the point, and that's it, or teach the point, and that's that. You're going to give a teaching example. So why it matters is because there's a format for each point that you deliver, and if you do this format well, it makes it land for different people. And then you're going to tell a story, or you're going to give an emotional example about how you or others have put that point into action. So the reason I would say that you need to have less points in your preview event or in your webinar or those things is I am a person that, as I mentioned, that teaches way, way, way too much. The first presentations that I gave, especially 10-minute or 30-minute preview events, I was trying to teach 10 to 15 points. My slides, even like they are now, were just so packed to the brim with information that everybody in the room felt like I just walked in there and like punched them in the stomach. They're sitting there like, oh, I can't take this on. Because people can't learn that much in that amount of time. And if you're on later in the day, or it's in the evening, or people are hungry, or whatever's happening, the emotional example or the story a lot of times, like think about that. You can imagine me being excited, talking fast, jumping out, in teaching so much content that everybody in the room is just like, I learned nothing. They looked at me and they're like, I learned nothing in that session. And then you go, oh my God, I tried to do too much. I tried to teach too much. That's the emotional example. So you want an emotional example. Then you check in. So you want to come back. So whether you review, you restate, you got to check in and make sure they understood. So I want to make sure you understand why you can only teach 3 points in 30 minutes or 5 points in 60 minutes. I got to check in for that understanding. And then once I've checked in and I see that they're following and they're nodding their heads or they're saying yes or whatever it is, then I'm going to restate the point. So the point of this is, point number 1 is, in a 30-minute slot, you can only teach 3 points. And this is why, because you got to state the point, you've got to teach the point, you got to tell a story about the point, I got to make sure you understood it, and then I'm going to review and move on. So that, for each one of these points in a 30-minute presentation, this alone is going to take 7 to 10 minutes of your time. That's what it's going to take. So there's multiple spots to put your multiple points, and I even threw in a spot for an additional one. You can print that multiple times, whatever it is you want to do with it. So your core content, you're going to teach. Then there's what's called the pre-close. So this is setting the stage for getting them to take a next step. Setting the stage for them to buy something, setting the stage for them to take action. Doesn't matter what it is, but I want you to think about the reasons why somebody would take the next step. So you're watching this preview event presentation and you're going, man, this could really be good for my business. There's going to be some practical or logical reasons why you want to take a next step with me, why you want to come next week, or why you want to be part of what I do. So what are the practical reasons? Well, it's because you'll put on a better presentation. You'll make more money. You will be able to get more people to come to your future events. People will be happier with what you teach. People will understand a lot more. Like, people will walk away learning more from you than they had before. So I want to break down the logical reasons why someone should take the next step. Then I also want to think about the emotional reasons. So when you know how to get on a stage, speak, and connect with people, it makes you, and rather than just having money, it makes you happier. You start building a community. You make friends. Like, I've met so many friends over the years that are people that are coming from my speaking engagements or my speaking business. There's all sorts of emotional reasons why people would want to continue working with me. Just because people will like you. Like, you want people to like you if you're going to be a speaker or a trainer. So what's the emotional reason? Then, this is a big question, and most people don't even ask this question of themselves because they don't think about it. What happens if they do nothing? So what happens if they sit through your whole presentation and they literally do nothing? They're like, whatever. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to go back to what I'm doing. There has to be a consequence to them not taking action. So if you're not speaking, if you're not doing webinars, if you're not consistent about what you're doing, chances are you eventually are going to be missing opportunity. You're going to be missing money you could be making. You're not going to be growing your community. You're not going to be growing your database. You're going to be missing out on all sorts of things. You're not going to get your products done. And if you don't do that, then you're going to be stuck in a job you don't like, or you're going to be stuck with people you don't like, or, there has to be a consequence for when people do nothing. And you want to know what that is. And you want to say that in your preview. So you can take this action and be happier and make more money and have a business you love. Or you can do nothing and you can continue doing what you're doing. And down the line, 10 years from now, you'll look back and you'll go, why didn't I just do this? Like, why didn't I do that? And so you want to have consequence for what they're not doing. Then you actually start going into the close. So the close is really specific. And this is how you get people to take action. So doesn't matter whether it's something free or something that you sell, you want to break it down. So I break it down with these questions. What are the specific components of your next step program? So I want you to think about every single detail. So what will they be doing as part of what you're doing? And so this might be training, it might be time you spend with them, it might be resources like this document, it might be downloads, it might be a Facebook group, it might be technology. You need to be as specific as possible. When they take the next step, what are all of the things that they're going to get? So, and you want to break that down as much as possible. And even better from there, once you break that down, you're going to start putting a value on each one of those things, a price on each one of those things. So what are the specific components? Then, what are the outcomes with each one of these components? So why do you give them each of those components? So if there's a training program, that's obvious. But if there's a Facebook group, why are you giving them that Facebook group? What do you hope that they get out of participating in that Facebook group? Why is each thing important? Like, why is each aspect of your next step an important thing? And how do they make their life easier? So that's really critical to think about. Then you're going to break it down further. You're going to say, what is the value of each one of those components? So this is a place where I know a lot of people have questions, and we'll talk about this in future classrooms and those kinds of things. But for each thing you give them, what's the value of that component? What's the price? So if you just sold them, the training, or you just sold them the coaching time, or you just sold them the Facebook group, what would you charge for that? So you want to have a value associated with each one of those things. Then you want to add it up. And so you want to say, the value of my entire next step is this. It's $100, Then what's the price that they're going to pay today? So, or what are they going to, and if it's free, that's fine. They just sign up and that's what they're doing, but it has value. You want to give a value even if you're giving them a free thing. So even if you say, normally you would pay $100 for this, but when you sign up today, it's free. That's a great kind of offer. But a lot of times you might say the value of this thing is $100, and when you act today, it's $50. And so what's the package price that you're offering? Then, once you've got that, you want to say, how does this package solve the problems or the issues that you raised in the pre-close? So when you wrote what happened if they didn't do anything, now you want to say, well, when you do this, when you take action, guess what? None of those things are going to happen. And not only that, you're going to be happier, you're going to make more money, you're going to be confident when you deliver your preview event, you're going to know all these things, you're going to step on stage and you're not going to worry because you're going to be organized, ready to go, you know what you need, all your stuff's going to be prepared. So this package solves your problems. Like, I'm directly going at the problems and saying, this is how it does it. What's the result? So just like you give a promise for the presentation, for the 30, 60, or 90 minutes, or 10 minutes, or whatever you're doing, you want to give a result for when they take the next step. So obviously today you could start to learn about preview events, but when you keep working with me over time, you're going to make a lot more money, or you're going to understand how this becomes a business, or you're going to understand how your preview events become your program. So as you keep working with me, there's way more results to come in what you're doing. What are some experiences or testimonials that previous customers have had when they've worked with you? So if you don't have results yet, that's okay. You can talk about examples again here, but if you have worked with people in the past doing what you do, even if it's on a job, you want to mention that. People say that I am the best at whatever. You want those testimonials loud and proud if you've got them, if people have already worked with you, and you want to have those. Then I break it down further. What's the minimum? So like if they just got one thing, and you hear me say that a lot during my presentations here, if you just had one takeaway, like even if you just did the first section of this worksheet and that's all you got from this, that's great. You still are going to be able to host an event and be totally clear on what to say and how to say it, even if you did that. So that's the minimum. The maximum you could get out of this, so like if you do everything I say, what do you get then? Well, man, you could have a sustainable 6, 7, or 8-figure US business doing this. I know people that they make, when they do a preview event, they make $100,000 US like that. They know that's when they've got this dialed in, this is how you grow your business. So that's the maximum. If you act on every one of these things and you answer all of these questions and you deliver a great event, that can make you a lot of money to do this. So that's the maximum you could get. Then you have to answer, how long is this offer available? Like, can they have it forever? Do they only get it in the room? Do they only get it for a few days after that they're in the room? Like, how long do they get the offer? And when do they have to take action? Then how do they take action? So do they fill out an order form? Do they, sign up on a sign-up sheet? Do they give you a card? What do they do to take that action? And you have to be really specific. So if you're going to say, to fill out your order form, you go to the back table and you stand with me and fill out the order form. You want to give that exact instruction. Join me at the back table where you will fill out your order form and do the next step. Or I'm going to pass around a sign-up sheet. Sign up with your name and your email address so that you can take the next step. I'm very, very specific. You want to be very specific. Fill out this order form. Click on this link. Sign up on this form. You have to be super specific. Like the action from this is, click my name, send me a message, or respond in the comments and say, Ken, I want the organizer that you reviewed on tonight's section. And I will send you that organizer. And when you get this organizer, as you've already seen, the amount of headaches that you will have go away dramatically. You will know exactly what to say and do. You're going to know how you're going to prepare for that event and where you're going to do it and what you need to do that event. So all this stuff is in line. And if you pull this off, you can make a lot of money doing this. This is how the greatest speakers in the world make money doing what they're doing. And then finally on here, there's a follow-up phase. So when the event's done, and as you walk off the stage, the event is not over. This is a mistake people make. They're like, well, I guess we're done, and then they don't follow up. The follow-up phase is arguably the most important thing that you do at the event. So you have to say, all right, how are you going to fulfill the things that you fulfill? So if you take, money, how are you going to send them their product or their program or their access? If if people didn't take the offer, how are you going to let them know what to do? How are you going to stay in touch? How are you going to tell them about the next event that you do or whatever it is that you've got there? So as you can see on this, as I mentioned, there's so much to consider. This is a huge organizer that we've gone through. I've given you the instruction. I run communities about this stuff, as you can see from all my pictures and all that stuff. I've been doing this for a long time. The way you get in touch with me, and I posted some things here, I put the link, but you can just click my name on the classroom, send me a message, or if for some reason you can't do that, you can send me an email, ken@kencourse.com, send me an email, and I will send you this organizer. But you have to say, I want this organizer, and that's the only way that you're going to get it. I'm not going to post it with the classroom. You have to take action and follow up with me. I have to know you're committed, and if I know you're committed, I'm going to send you this, because this is something that people normally pay for in my process, or they have to opt in and give me their contact information to get this form. So if you want this form, you have to respond, and that's the action you have to take. And I'm going to follow up by sending it to you. So that's what the follow-up action is from this. But keeping it that specific is really, really, really important. So if you want that, as I said, click, let me know. I will send it to you. But let's review really quickly before we end, just like I taught you to do. So the stages of your preview event. You want to plan your event in advance. Obviously, I gave you tons of things to consider for that. You have the event kickoff. So if you have an MC or facilitator, they go there. You have the core teaching phase where you're teaching the thing you teach. You have the pre-close where you're getting them ready for what you're going to offer them. You have the close where you're going to offer them something. And then the follow-up. So those are the phases of your preview event. And you want consideration for each phase of the event. Planning, kickoff, core teaching, pre-close, close, and follow-up. Really, really critical for what you're doing. And as I said, this is your call to action. You want a copy of that organizer, just contact me. Respond to the post. Send me a direct message. Send me an email, ken@kencourse.com. That'll work here too. If for some reason you can't click the button, whatever doesn't work for you, that's how you get it. That's your call to action. And obviously, if you liked this, keep coming back. Share this lesson with friends. As I mentioned, this course, what I just taught tonight, and this organizer is something that students would pay in a 2-day workshop with me. They would pay between $2,000 and $5,000 United States to get this same training that I just gave you and start working on that and get support on it. These are the questions that have taken me 11 years to learn. And most of these things were learned through pain, like not having my order forms or not having a microphone or not having my luggage show up for events. I can tell stories about speaking nightmares the entire time. Like today, not having the internet be ready when I'm ready to get on and do my class. So all those things can happen. This is how you get it. Send me a response. Let me know. Share this with friends. Let them know about this class and the types of education we're doing here in the classroom. Share the other instructors, Julia, Amy, Alex, so many great instructors. Leland that I mentioned. I know I'm forgetting names because I'm still new. We have new instructors coming to you as well. So if you appreciate this classroom, share. Let people know this is an amazing free resource that people have available to them to get training that you would have to pay thousands of dollars for anywhere else to get this. And if you want that organizer, follow up with me. Let me know. Obviously, I'm going to have plenty to share in future weeks of Expert Momentum. I really appreciate all of you who've taken the time to be here with me today. I hope you got a ton of value out of this. I know that I love this content. I love teaching people how to speak, how to host their events, and I'm excited to be with you here on Expert Momentum. We will see you in the classroom next week.